celebrate Black history, the Post and Courier is presenting a series of video interviews and podcasts featuring 12 dynamic South Carolina leaders to know. We talk to people from all over the state about their efforts to advance social justice, celebrate Black culture, address community needs, and create a better world. Our videos and podcasts will be released monthly through January 2022. To watch or to listen, and to read feature stories about major civil rights milestones, significant organizations, past and present, and South Carolina's pantheon of social justice warriors, go to postandcourier.com/Black History. Join us in learning about our state's remarkable change agents.
The racial and economic disparities in this country have only been widened by the coronavirus and amplified by the most recent acts of injustice. That's why Bank of America has committed $1 billion over 4 years to address critical gaps in affordable housing, access to healthcare, employment and job skills, and the resources small businesses need to succeed. We can do more to further advance racial equality and economic opportunity for all.
Today we welcome Elizabeth Morris. Elizabeth Morris.
Yes.
Hi, very nice to see you.
Good to
very
see
nice
you
to
as well.
meet you. Here in Columbia, where neither of us are from,
Yes.
but we're standing here at the State House just because, well, actually you were in town, I guess, for a meeting of some kind.
Yes, I was in town for a meeting today.
Excellent. How did it go? Was
It
productive?
went really well. Yes.
Okay, good. You solved all the problems of the world?
Not all of them, but
Just
we're well
most
on
of
the
them?
way.
Okay, all right, excellent. Very good, very good. So you are an Aiken figure, public figure in Aiken, South
Yes.
Carolina, working with the NAACP and working for Clemson and all this stuff. We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
First, I actually want to know a little bit about who you are and what makes you tick and where you come from originally and how your youth sort of shaped who you are.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, what makes me tick
Yeah.
is being able to help others. Even from being a very young child, being number 7 of 8 children.
Wow.
I've always known the importance of being there, being available.
Because your parents said
Yeah,
you better
yes,
help with
yeah.
the kids or else.
Well, I was one of the younger ones,
Oh, okay,
but
okay.
being able to watch how family interact with each other. Always been very close to family, always spent time with family, and family was a center in a sense of my universe. So looking out for each other, supporting each other has always been so vitally important to me. And then of course, as I've grown up, become a woman, a younger woman at that time, again, being able to be there and support family, and was one of the reasons why I elected to stay in South Carolina, because my parents were, as they were getting older, I needed and wanted to be available to them. So joined the military at 17, but prior to that time, again, growing up very modestly. My mother was stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
Dad owned his own business,
Okay.
but at the same time, Dad did not have a formal education, but he was so driven. He was a hard worker, and he instilled that into his children in our family. And I feel that is what has molded me into who I am, how mom was at home. And she was a nurturer, always just so available to us. So I think watching her in her role as mom, but also the keeper of the house and to take care of her kids. And then my father, who would work rain or sunshine, was always a hard worker.
Sounds like you got a big chunk of each.
I got a big chunk of each, absolutely. And that helped shape and mold me into who I am today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are they still around?
Well, no. My father passed in 1999. He, of course, he had prostate cancer, and my mother passed in June of 2018.
I hate that you say, of course, but it's so common.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's so common. And again, because he did not have health insurance, because he was self-employed. So the only time that he would visit the doctor is when he was sick. So the preventive care and all of those things was not there. And all of those things are so vitally important to me in terms of how do we make sure Americans have access to health care so they can take care of themselves and they can take care of their children so they can live a long, healthy life, if at all possible. So that's one of the reasons why it means so much to me.
So you joined the military at 17.
I did.
And why did you join the military, and what lessons did you learn?
I joined the military at 17 because I knew my parents did not have the resources in order to send me to college.
Okay, so this was a way to gain access to the GI Bill.
Absolutely, a way to gain access, and also the training. I'd heard about the military. Literally, I just tore this little pamphlet in a magazine. I tore this little thing out that said, "Be all you can be, join the Army." So what I actually did is I just filled it out. No postage necessary. Didn't tell my parents. Just put it in the mail and thought, they won't be in touch with me. So 2 weeks later, these two recruiters were on my parents' porch. As I was driving the school bus at that time in South Carolina, they allowed students to drive a school bus. Probably lets you see right there that responsibility is something that's been instilled in me very early.
Very early age.
Very early age, yes.
Did they pay you at 17?
Absolutely.
Or was this a volunteer
No,
thing?
it was not volunteer.
Okay.
But driving a school bus actually was an honor for me because I was able to help pay my car insurance because I had a little car at that time. And again, instilling what it meant to be responsible. And
gave you a sense of independence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and purpose, even in that small way.
Even in that small way, absolutely. So as those recruiters stood on my porch, my mother, gave me that nice little look of, what have you done?
Gone and done.
So 2 weeks after high school, I was at Fort Jackson, right here in Columbia, and joined the military again because 7 of 8 children, the resources were not there. And I felt compelled in order for me to advance my own life, that I had to take matters into my own hands.
I see.
So here we are.
There you go. That'll be your epitaph. Sure. Right? Liz Norris, who took matters into her own hands. Yes.
So lessons learned in the military, however, was so many of the same lessons that my mother and father had taught me.
Okay.
Discipline. Okay. Absolutely. It was just a reinforcement of just being disciplined, staying focused, going after what you want, integrity, honor, dignity, all of those things were all a part of the military.
Truth.
So,
truth.
Okay. Yes.
Which one of those?
Absolutely. And building relationships. When you live in a small town, you tend to be sheltered. But then meeting men and women from all over the country really opened my worldview. And I just never looked back.
Did you
from
get
there.
to travel at all?
Absolutely. I was actually in Korea at 18 years old.
Oh my
God. I joined the ROTC program at USC Aiken while I was there as a student. Again, because I saw that as an opportunity for me to advance my options. So as a result, I was selected through the Cadet Troop Leadership Program to spend 6 weeks in Korea. So I spent time there as a cadet. In the military, as a cadet at USC Aiken, and then after I got my commission, I was in the national. It was the National Guard, and then I went to the reserve, and that's where I spent the rest of my time until I was honorably discharged in 1999. And this is after I got married in '96, and we had our first son in '98. And I thought, this is probably not the best for me and my family. Yeah, circumstances that changed a bit.
Nevertheless, you had a pretty long career in the military.
Yeah, absolutely. And enjoyed it and learned so much about myself, and just had some wonderful and still have great friends as a result of it.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And that shaped you and formed you also, I guess, reinforcing the lessons your parents instilled in you and the values your parents instilled in you, and reinforcing your own conception of who you are, I guess.
Absolutely, for sure. That was a huge part of that as well. Yeah.
And these days, I guess you're working for Clemson University.
Yes.
The
Youth Learning Institute. Correct.
Tell me about the Youth Learning Institute.
All right. So I started with the Youth Learning Institute in 2006. It was a couple of years after we had our third child. Youth Learning Institute is an organization that's there to build capacity for school districts, faith-based organizations, other private organizations, anyone who's serving not just youth, but if you have a desire and a capacity to serve, we come alongside you and provide training, professional development, summer camp opportunities, field studies, you name it. So we're somewhat of a huge umbrella of how do we better provide services and capacity for the citizens of South Carolina.
So you're collaborating with other institutions and organizations
Absolutely.
to give them more bandwidth, more ability to reach more
Yeah.
people,
Yes.
and bring them into the fold and train them and so on. So what
Absolutely.
kind of training happens? What are you preparing these young people for?
Well, in terms of the training, I spend a lot of time training state agencies. I'm one of the training specialists. That's one of the hats that I currently wear with the Youth Learning Institute as a training specialist. We do lots of professional development around conflict management. We also help organizations build their capacity to strategically plan. And then we do lots of training around stress management, time management, because of course we're in the middle of a pandemic right now.
Right.
Lots of leadership, lots of
Pandemic.
leadership training as well. Personality training around True Colors, and also Strength Finders, Clifton Strength Finders. So
Okay.
people can find who they are,
they
how
are,
do
yeah.
they better serve
So
in the
this is really
capacity
geared
that they
for
are.
individuals and
At-
working with individuals.
in-
And when you say
yes.
their capacity and improving capacities, also their individual capacity to be all that they can be.
Absolutely.
borrow from the
Individual, and then of course the teams that they work on, in term where they're working or where they're, I guess, decided to be well.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. And that's
Uh-huh.
been your primary job right now for a
Well,
number of
for
years?
right now, probably for the last 5 years, primary. But prior to that time, I also directed a girls' center. I was the assistant director, and then our director, she retired, and then I stepped in that.
Yes.
And then
Loved
funding.
That role,
I
recall.
completely
You
love
loved it.
about yes,
You
yes.
loved being the boss.
No,
You loved it.
not so. No,
Everybody loved
no,
you.
no. Well, I don't know about that
Yeah,
part.
they loved you. You were in charge.
Yeah. Well, some of those leadership skills and
I'm teasing
abilities
you.
that
Sorry.
came from the military has definitely served me well in my
In general.
life. Yeah, it has. But not so much as being the boss. It's more for me about helping develop and grow individuals and for them to find the best in themselves more than anything else. Yeah.
And of course, your passion for service and for engagement with young people
Yeah.
also is manifested in Aiken
Absolutely.
with the local NAACP,
Yes.
right? Where you
Correct.
have been involved for many years, I guess. And,
Yes,
And you remain very involved
Yes.
with their youth programming.
Yes,
Tell me about
yes.
that.
As a youth advisor, I have the honor, the privilege of working with about 60 young people all over the county, and it gives them an opportunity, again, to develop their own leadership. This is a youth-led organization, and my role primarily is just to advise
Okay.
and be there, and I guess kind of a guardian of that group of young people. Again, giving them an opportunity to see their ability in the community to serve and be servants. But also develop that ability to become leaders as they matriculate to college or the military or in their jobs that if they decide not in those particular fields. So it's my job as a youth advisor is to encourage, to support and advise wherever needed, and just ensure that they are developing those leadership abilities that they currently do have.
Which is, I must say, very typical and very historical, the way NAACP youth chapters often work.
Absolutely.
The whole idea is
Yeah.
to empower young people. After all,
Absolutely.
you want them to take the initiative themselves
Yes,
and to provide them the necessary support, which is what you're doing.
absolutely.
So tell me about the dynamic in Aiken County now. How has it been changing? What's Aiken County like for those who don't know?
Okay, so the county.
And what are the challenges that you're facing?
Well, I love Aiken. Aiken has been home for my family for 25 years, and my husband and I will be celebrating our 25th anniversary in August.
Right. Happy
So yes,
anniversary.
well, thank you. It has been home for us, and we've enjoyed Aiken. But
You ride horses?
I do not
Horses
ride
nearby,
horses,
I think.
but no, they are nearby.
They're
But no, I don't necessarily ride horses. No. For Aiken, I will say that it's a definitely unique community.
In what sense?
So we have the side of Aiken that is the historical, beautiful equestrian side of Aiken, and then we have the other side of Aiken where people have great needs. Where our senior citizens have food disparities, where families may have to work 2 jobs or more in order to make sure that their kids are taken care of. We have a school district that sometimes it's unfortunate, but I'm seeing things that are getting better, that sometimes you can look at the haves and have-nots as it relates to the school districts. The educational system, I think it's definitely, we could do a better job in terms of making sure that all students are getting an equal education and opportunity. You know, unfortunately, some of the outlying schools that are in the county may not have access to as much as those schools that are located more closely to the city of Aiken. Yeah, these are some of the areas that I see. Again,
so there's a rural versus urban
divide. That, and also a have and a have nots. Those who are doing well financially and those who may not be doing as well financially.
And is that, as is often the case historically in South Carolina, is there a racial line there, or is it mostly just a class line?
I think it's both class and a racial line. It's unfortunate that sometimes I think there are so many in our community who really want to address that issue, but sometimes I think that there's a lack of courage sometimes to have those what I call courageous conversations about what that racial line looks like and how we need to address some of those issues.
And until you acknowledge a problem, you can't really address it.
That's exactly right.
And then it's never enough just to acknowledge it. Then you have to have the hard conversation.
Yes. And quite honestly, those are some of the things that I think we're moving towards in our community. But again, these are issues that continue to
Do you talk with the young people, the members of the NAACP Youth Club and the youth organization, the young activists? I mean, what is your engagement like with those people when it comes to these external issues?
Well, when it comes to these issues, I am never afraid to have those conversations. But what I've learned to do over the years is to do more listening than talking. With most movements that you've noticed where change has truly happened, it has been because of the young people. And it's because of their involvement, and it's because they care about it. First and foremost, I allow them to have those open discussions, and you have to create a safe environment to feel that they can have those discussions. Right, sure. So we definitely provide that opportunity, and they do talk about it. So my question back to them in many cases in terms of what are you going to do about it? How do you organize? How do you address the issue? And then when that takes place, then how do we provide you with the support that you need? Because in too many cases, I've found that adults are wanting to address these issues and young people don't see the need. And at those particular times, they definitely see it differently. So instead of me filling them with what I see, I want to hear from them. Sure. I want to hear their voices.
So you become a good listener.
Absolutely. Young people, that is the #1 strategy, is to just listen.
Yeah. There's a place where young artists can pursue their passion and learn from practicing professional artists. A place where they have the opportunity to explore and refine their talents in an inclusive and supportive community. A place where life-changing experiences are the norm, not the exception. This place? The South Carolina Governor's School for the Arts and Humanities. Learn more about our public residential high school and summer programs. Visit us online today.
Young people in Aiken, how tapped in are they with, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement or the general movement for economic justice?
Sure. The young people that I work with are very much so woke. They understand some of the racial issues or some of the disparities that are taking place around them. However, I am a no excuse advisor. So no excuses. So even though no, it's not. Now, when I say that, yes, we see these issues. They're very much so. But now there's a segment, I will be very honest with you, who either decide that they are not ready or not see the issues as they are. So we're not pushing those issues. So, but if they should come up, I need to know from my young people, how are you feeling? How does that make you feel? And what do you propose that you can do about that? So that is how I tend to work with our young people and not give them the solutions and have them talk about what can they do.
Provide some historical context though? So,
absolutely.
There's so many issues that the young people are facing today that young people faced in the 70s and in the 60s and in the 50s and in the 40s, and you can go all the way back.
Yes, you can.
And a lot of those issues are, unfortunately, in a way, very much the same.
Yes.
And even the way to approach those issues often haven't changed very much.
Right.
And I wonder, I'm just curious, I really don't know, this is no value judgment on my part, but I'm wondering to what extent young people today in different places from different backgrounds appreciate the work of the past?
I think the young people appreciate it, but in so many cases, I think that they are not aware of the work that has been done in the past.
Yeah.
And I honestly feel that that is an onus on us as older Americans. And I would also like to say that this is not just an issue in the Black community.
Right.
We all should be educating our children, not just minorities, not just Black children or African American children. All children in America should understand what our history has been and what it is now. And at the same time, we need to make sure that they understand how we need to move forward. So what I see from even raising my own children and also working with other children, so much of that information has either been omitted or it has been watered down to the point where they don't see the relevance. Mm-hmm. So I think it's so vitally important when we teach history, we need to teach truth about the history. And I'll give you an example. My mother worked in a plantation home. Now, we're not talking about generations ago, okay? My own mother was taken out of school when she was 8 years old to take care of a little white child. 8 years old.
And where was that?
And it was in Saluda County. Yes. And when she did get the opportunity to go to school, now I'm talking about my mother, not my grandmother or great grandmother. So when she had the opportunity to go to school, they had to walk 3 miles to school. Okay. So when they had access to books, those books were hand-me-down books from others who decided that it's time for the white children to actually receive the newer books. And then also sometimes even in the classroom, we didn't have people who were always educated to teach. So we did the best we could with the resources that were available. Absolutely. So that is history that so many of young people today, this is my history. That's history that probably many of the kids, their grandparents, they know all about it. But because sometimes of the shame and the pain that comes with that, all they want to do is just move forward. Why look back? But if we don't continue, if we aren't able to look back and learn from those mistakes from the past, and also the progress that we've made, then we're not going to reach our children in the way that I feel that we should.
And it's also important, I think, to understand the institutional forces at work.
Absolutely.
As well. So, there are factors within our control and there are factors outside of our control.
Absolutely.
And it's important to differentiate that and understand that so that we can move forward working to improve the institutional issues as
Absolutely.
Well.
I.e., for example, criminal justice reform, educational reform. Absolutely. These are the things that I'm talking to my young people about. When I say no excuses, meaning regardless of what anyone says, you have a right to a great education. So you're not going to have excuses for not attending school. And when you attend, you are all in. Yeah. You are focused. You're doing your homework. You're asking questions. You are attentive in class. And see, my kids are probably thinking, oh boy, mom is on her soapbox. But that is vitally important to me. So that is what I mean.
Tell the young people this.
Absolutely. Yeah. For the most part, I would think so. Okay, yeah. Good. Well, let me say this. I feel like some of the results of that is I have one son who will be graduating in April on a presidential scholarship.
Oh, well,
so okay, so he listened a little bit.
Right. And what about the other kids?
And then
the kids who are not your own biological children?
Those who are not my own biological children, I am pouring into them and pouring into their parents as much as I possibly can. Yes, I know many of them think, oh boy, it's that military in her. She's on us about this or on us about that, but they know that I am doing all of that in love.
Well,
yeah, and they know that I care about them. I care about their future. I care about the decisions that they make. But at the same time, I am not interested in excuses.
Something tells me that these young people, 20, 30, 40 years from now, are going to look back very fondly on their interactions with Liz Morris. They're going to remember how Ms. Morris told me this and told me that. And they're going to name you as one of the big influences in their life when they were young. I have a feeling, right? I know you're modest. You shouldn't be thinking about that. That's okay. That's your legacy.
Right.
But I have a feeling that's what's going to happen.
Right.
So where do you think we should be 20 years from now? And how do we get there?
Yeah, 20 years from now, we should not be having this race conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, we should not. We should not be looking at criminal justice reform. We should not be looking at educational equity and all of those kinds of things. Everybody should be treated fairly.
How do we get
and
there,
that's
though? How do we do that?
how do we get there? We first get there with conversations. We get there with honest conversations. We get there with understanding our history. We get there with understanding white privilege. We get there with understanding that everybody has a part in educating our society. Everybody has a part in using their voice and saying, that's not right. That is, in my opinion, that is how we get there. We don't get there by saying, we're going to put all of the good kids here and the not so good kids here, or everyone who have access in this department here and no one else, everybody else have to follow. No, we all should be going along at the same time and addressing the issues as they come up. You know, again, back to healthcare, you know, criminal justice, talking about education. I mean, you could name a plethora of all of the issues that we're facing. Housing.
These are
Yeah,
basic
these are
issues.
basic
It's important
issues.
to remember.
Yeah.
These are fundamental, very
Funda-
basic issues
yeah.
that some other countries have more or less figured out.
Yes. And we
Not
can figure it
imperfectly,
out.
but-
Yeah. And I think also if we care about each other, just a little more about each other in terms, and not be so greedy, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, how much is enough? And when are we going to be our brother's keeper? When are we going to care about our neighbors? Which again was a huge part of my life and even my legacy now is my spirituality, you know, being reared in the church and also making sure that my neighbors were taken care of. If we had, my neighbors had, you know, all of the, my mother is one of 15, she's the last of 15 kids. I did not understand why when we gather of harvest a garden, why everybody in the community were able to get those beans or that corn or whatever it was. It's because we all looked out for each other. And I think until we get back to that mentality, back to that mindset of getting and making sure that we're caring for each other, unfortunately, in 20 years from now, we may even be more divided. Unfortunately, but I'm hoping not. But I do have hope. Let me be real clear.
But that is the
Yeah,
risk.
yeah.
Don't you think there's also a kind of cultural difference there? I mean, within the Black community, the
Sure.
church was such a pillar, and it was the
Huge.
gathering point, and it wasn't just spiritual. It helped people find jobs and work.
Absolutely.
It provided the social safety
Sure.
net. It was all these things. Because the Black community, especially during segregation, needed that kind of cohesiveness and that support. Otherwise, how are you going to survive?
I think we still need it.
And of course,
think
well, every community arguably needs it, but certainly
absolutely.
those who are marginalized or
Absolutely.
otherwise, you
Yeah.
know, coping with injustice
Sure.
and inequity, to be sure. But then in the broader American society, you have this kind of rugged individualism and this American dream where everything's possible, and we're encouraged to sort of pursue our own individual interests and go get it, go
Absolutely.
make your goal. And so how do you reconcile those competing forces within American culture writ large?
Well, you talked about the individualistic component. I'm huge on collectivism for me. I believe in community.
Everybody getting together to pick the beans.
But I think it's okay for you to go after what you want in life. Now, this whole idea of the American dream, I have some different views on what that is and what that means. But I also feel like when you're going after what you want, you need to remember your brother and sister that's behind you as well. You need to reach back. It shouldn't be all about me. And I know in the Black community, how I was reared, it wasn't just about me. It's also about making sure that your brothers and your sisters, and they don't have to be biological, to make sure that the elders are cared for in the community, to make sure that children are taken care of. You know, I love this whole idea of a village concept. And that is what I teach my children I call them my children through the NAACP Youth Council. Even the adults that I work with, I call us a village. And that village, it does take an entire village to raise a child. But also what many people fail to also talk about is for that child to come back to raise the village. So I think what happens sometimes, because we have become very selfish in what we see as a way of life, we don't think about the person who may be struggling a little bit. We don't think about those individuals
Back in the
who may be,
neighborhood.
back in the neighborhood, or that kid who's having some problems at school. Where are the homework centers? Where are those who parenting that can help those parents who may be struggling and just need a little extra help there? And also, let's not even talk about the income gap and all that.
You're reminding me of a story I wrote for Post Career some months ago about how highways and roadways in the 60s and 70s were built through black neighborhoods very deliberately, and using the excuse of slum clearance and all these things. And one example was right in Charleston, where the Crosstown went through this predominantly black neighborhood, which had been, prior to that, very cohesive with this big social safety net, with everybody helping one another. I remember one of the people I interviewed for the story was describing this, how her own neighbors, you know, not everybody was at the same income level.
Absolutely.
Some people were very poor, some people were very middle class.
Yes.
But everybody looked after one another. And you
Yes.
had families to look after the kids when they came home from school.
Yes.
You didn't have to worry about the kids crossing a giant highway.
Exactly.
Also. And then when this road came through, it was the beginning of the end of that kind of cohesiveness. And so again, you know, sometimes you have these external forces that are a little bit beyond your control that happen and suddenly impact your life and your neighborhood and your community. And I guess your job then with the young people is to remind them that not only do they need to do what they need to do, but they need to be ready to fight when the fight presents itself.
Absolutely. You don't allow anyone to take your voice from you. Know your history, understand your history. Know the strong shoulders that you're standing on. I even tell my son, who's here at the University of South Carolina here in Columbia, know that not all African Americans have the opportunity to actually attend this university. So you better make the best of it. That's
that is a very good note to end on. Make the best of it. Yes, thank you so much, Liz.
Absolutely.
Congratulations on all your hard work and how it generates these results that you can see in young people today. That must be very satisfying in some ways.
It is satisfying, but there's still so much work to be done. And I try and recruit other adults, young adults, youth, to join with us. And again, to love each other, but at the same time, get the work done, support each other.
Well, thank you again.
Sure, absolutely.
Good luck in Aiken. All best wishes and your community.
Thank you.
And thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. All right, absolutely.
12 Black Leaders to Know is a special project of the Post and Courier. We couldn't have done it without our sponsors. Thank you.
So a lot of what I do is very complex. I write about animals, conservation, things like that. And so I really try to talk to the experts and take what they say and make it more understandable for the everyday person. I work very closely with conservation groups, local universities. Now I'm actually talking with the National Weather Service on a regular basis just to make sure that the information that I'm reporting is actually facts and not just opinion-based. I see that a lot of people really respect the Post and Courier, and not just here in Charleston, but all over the state. I've seen a lot of comments and heard a lot of comments that what we're doing is better than any other outlet, and people look to us for facts, accurate news.